What if everything you thought you knew about Billy Brown, the so-called Alaskan wilderness hero, was nothing more than smoke and mirrors? For years, fans believed they were watching the raw, unfiltered life of a man who had mastered survival in the most brutal landscapes on Earth. But behind the cameras was a shocking web of deception, family feuds and legal troubles that shattered that image. Billy wasn't just a father on TV. He was a man running from secrets he could never fully escape. And once those secrets spilled into the open, nothing was ever the same again. To millions of viewers, Billy Brown was the ultimate survivalist, a patriarch who led his family into the wild, showing strength, resilience and leadership that inspired fans worldwide. Discovery Channel painted him as the man who traded comfort for hardship, a modern pioneer keeping his family safe in an unforgiving wilderness. People admired how he seemed to build a life out of nothing, carving shelter and sustenance from the frozen ground of Alaska. Billy wasn't just a father figure to his kids, he became one to viewers as well. But that admiration blinded people to what was really happening. Billy wasn't the flawless survivalist fans thought he was. Beneath the surface was a carefully curated image, one that required half-truths, exaggerations, and flat-out lies to sustain. For every scene of Billy roughing it in the wild, there were whispers of hotel stays, staged plots, and neighbors rolling their eyes at the act. Admirers didn't want to believe it at first, but cracks in the illusion started appearing, and soon the idol they placed on a pedestal was exposed as something far more complicated than the television ever let on. The truth was about to come crashing down. Long before Billy Brown ever set foot in Alaska, his life was marked by tragedy that would leave scars impossible to hide. As a young boy in Texas, Billy grew up in a wealthy family with a promising future. He had loving parents, a sister, and the kind of childhood that should have been filled with security. But fate had other plans. In a single horrifying moment, his family's private plane crashed in a thunderstorm over Lake Travis. His parents and sister didn't survive. Just like that, Billy was left completely alone. At just 16, he was thrust into a world no teenager should have to endure. With no family to protect him, Billy became easy prey for those eager to control his inheritance. Manipulated and deceived, he was tricked into signing away his rights, leaving him with nothing. Instead of a home, he found himself shuffled into juvenile facilities, cut off from the life he once knew. This betrayal hardened him, planting the seeds of distrust that followed him throughout adulthood. Billy wasn't just an orphan, he was a survivor of manipulation and loss. And while tragedy shaped him, it also set the stage for the complicated man fans would later meet on TV. When Billy eventually left Texas behind, Alaska became his promised land. It was here that he tried to build a new identity, one rooted in independence and grit. To fans, it looked like he had reinvented himself as the ultimate mountain man, living off the land, braving freezing storms, and leading his family far away from civilization. The cameras showed him chopping wood, fishing, and guiding his children as if every day were a test of survival. It was powerful television, but it wasn't the full story. The so-called Browntown settlement wasn't what people thought. Neighbors revealed that the cabins were little more than props, built for appearances and left empty once the cameras stopped rolling. Billy and his family weren't roughing it in remote wilderness every night. Instead, they often stayed in comfortable lodges just a few miles away, blending modern conveniences with a carefully manufactured image of rugged living. Even the wild isolation was misleading. Civilization was always close, with towns, pizza shops and neighbors just a short drive away. For years, fans bought into the fantasy. But once whispers turned into proof, many felt duped. Billy's wilderness persona wasn't just exaggerated, it was a myth carefully sold to millions. Behind the scenes, Billy's problems weren't only about image, they also involved the law. In 2000, Billy and his family applied for Alaska's permanent fund dividend, a payout meant strictly for full-time residents who lived in the state for at least an entire year. On paper, the Browns met the criteria. In reality, they didn't. Records later revealed that the family had spent long stretches outside Alaska, far beyond the legal limit of 180 days away. That should have disqualified them entirely. But Billy applied anyway, and collected thousands of dollars in state funds he wasn't entitled to. For more than 2 years, the money rolled in. Eventually, the truth caught up to him. Authorities charged him with fraud, forcing him into court. This wasn't a scripted storyline for Discovery. It was real, and the outcome was humiliating. Billy pleaded guilty and was ordered to repay over $6,000. The case shattered the illusion of a man living purely off the land with no ties to modern society. Instead, fans were forced to confront the reality of a family that bent the rules while selling the dream of a rugged, law-abiding lifestyle. The survivalist hero now had a criminal record. Even after the fraud scandal, Billy still held on to his reputation as a wilderness leader on TV. But as the seasons rolled on, more viewers began questioning the authenticity of what they were seeing. Certain moments felt too convenient, too dramatic, and eventually the truth about the show's staging spilled out. Take the infamous wolf attack. Cameras captured the family surrounded by howls in the night, children panicking, and Billy rallying them like a brave patriarch. It was gripping TV, except for one problem. Neighbors later said there were never wolf attacks in that area. The scene was scripted. Then there was the gunshot incident, which Discovery hyped up with disclaimers about danger to the family. The Browns retreated, and fans worried for their safety. But reporters uncovered the truth. There was no violent threat. A neighbor had set off fireworks near a helicopter. The family exaggerated it for dramatic effect, turning a minor inconvenience into a life-or-death scenario. Over time, these staged plots piled up, eroding trust. Billy had blurred the line between survivalist and performer, choosing spectacle over truth. For viewers who once idolized him, the realization was crushing. What they saw wasn't reality. It was television dressed as wilderness survival. As the illusion of the show crumbled, the Browns' real struggles came into focus, and they were uglier than anything filmed. Billy's children, once portrayed as a tight-knit unit, were locked in bitter feuds that spilled into the public eye. Noah, known as the family's inventor, fell in love and got married, but his new wife Rain never found acceptance within the Brown clan. His sisters openly disapproved, tensions escalated, and eventually the conflict pushed Noah to leave Alaska altogether. What fans saw as a simple relocation was actually the fallout of deep family fractures. Other children had their own controversies. Rain, the youngest, was accused of substance struggles and run-ins with the law. Matthew, the eldest, publicly accused Billy and Amy of exposing him to substances, later walking away from the show entirely. The carefully constructed image of a united family collapsed into accusations, restraining orders, and public betrayals. For years, fans thought they were watching a strong family battling nature. In reality, they were watching a family battling each other. And as the infighting grew more public, even longtime supporters started asking, was Billy really a strong patriarch, or the man who failed to hold his family together? Despite the scandals, nothing prepared fans for the day tragedy struck for real. In 2022, news broke that Billy Brown had suffered a seizure at home. The medics who rushed to his aid attempted CPR and even called for an emergency helicopter evacuation, but their efforts weren't enough. Billy was gone at 68 years old. The patriarch, whose life had been defined by survival, had met an end no one expected. The announcement left his family and fans stunned. Discovery, his children, and viewers worldwide flooded social media with tributes. For all the controversy, Billy had still been the heart of the Brown family. To many, he was flawed but beloved. Yet even in death, the controversies didn't stop. Some wondered if years of stress, family drama, and constant scrutiny contributed to his decline. Others focused on the legacy he left, not just a reality TV empire, but a fractured family still grappling with his choices. For the first time, the Browns faced a world without their leader, and without Billy steering the ship. Questions began to swirl about what would happen to the show, the estate, and the legacy he left behind. Billy's death should have marked the end of the drama. Instead, it opened the door to more. Just months after his passing, Robert Mann, a former business partner, came forward with claims against the Brown family estate. The dispute dragged the Browns into another exhausting legal battle, this time over money and property tied to Billy's name. For fans, it felt like déjà vu. Once again, the Browns were back in court. The timing couldn't have been worse. Discovery Channel, already under pressure from critics who accused the show of being fake, had little appetite for more controversy. With Billy gone and legal disputes looming, the network pulled the plug on Alaskan bush people after 14 seasons. Just like that, one of Discovery's longest-running and most-watched series was over. The Browns, once celebrated as rugged survivalists, were now remembered as one of reality TV's most controversial families. Still, Billy's story continues to spark debate. Was he a victim of tragedy who built a new life from nothing, or a manipulator who sold audiences an illusion? For every fan who feels betrayed, another insists he was misunderstood. And that question, hero or fraud, is the legacy Billy Brown left behind.